Yeah, I just what I want to say. One, we're synchronized, like in the mind. You know what I'm saying? Mentally, emotionally, physically. My diet's going to be starting. Coach, when is it? I feel like I'm about 4 weeks and 3 years out from my first cut. What do you think? My first show? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say 4 weeks and 3 years out from starting a cut.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
From having the proper relationship with food, where I'm comfortable enough to even try it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're almost not broken.
yeah. I stand with the broken Eric, because I know you're right now leaning down, and for those that might not even be aware, you don't have a visual element. You don't see that Eric's looking like Captain America crossed with Frank Zane. He's got the facial hair. He's got, like we said, the striated glutes. If you're listening, the auditory cue is that something might sound different with Eric, and that is he has upgraded the audio, because we care here at Iron Culture, providing the best possible podcast.
We're trying, and hopefully this audio does actually sound better, or you're just going to be like, nah, I can't tell. And we're going to be like, oh.
Ooh.
All right.
Hurt our ego.
Pain.
Well, we are committed, though, and that's why I just want to quickly say, recording this episode, we've had a few weeks of reading the positive comments and how everyone's honestly supportive. You know, we started this podcast with that goal, Iron Culture, to create greater awareness of the lifting community, to explore the historical, cultural, and a scientific approach to lifting as a whole. But, you know, we started, and I'm not the best with technology, despite being on YouTube for years and years. So the audio was not the best. We're working on the video, but I'm happy. And so I think this is great that this episode in particular, Eric, is the one where we got everything organized. Like, our video's on point, bro. The audio's on point. Everything came together.
100%. I think the only problem with this episode is I was fanboying so hard that I just had trouble actually being a good podcast host, because we had 3 amazing athletes on. We had Jen Thompson.
Yep.
We had Stefi Cohen, and we had Natalie Hanson. It's by far the strongest podcast that's probably ever been on the internet, with these 3 world champion and world record holding powerlifters.
Yeah, no, we have 3 world record powerlifters and us on the podcast today. You'll have to make do with us. I mean, at least Eric has biceps. I've been told I have an okay personality, but that was from my mom. So we one can never know.
I feel like you have a more than okay personality. It's a solid, like, decent personality.
Decent, yeah. You know, decent in different parts of the world mean different things, depending on how you say it, too. It's like, oh, that's decent. Like, that means it's good, or that's decent, you know? So,
he's a decent powerlifter, or he's a decent man.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And we'll leave it up to the viewer to determine, but what they can't determine, what is just unequivocal fact, is the fact that this podcast is amazing. We record this after we do the entire episode, so we had the ladies on for about an hour and 10 minutes. We explore women in powerlifting, the recent rise in powerlifting. I believe Eric gave the statistic that it's close to 40% of competitors, at least in the IPF, are now women. This was not the case 20 years ago. You watch powerlifting documentaries, you watch just lifting as a whole, at the time of someone like Ed Cohen, it probably was like 95% guys and then 5% women. So what has caused this recent explosion? We have 3 people that are at the forefront of this community, creating a positive change and being just, I would say, influencers in a good way to community, where Stefi said in the episode how she had a booth at the Arnold, and a lot of the women lifters that came up to her are all relatively new to powerlifting, about to do their first meet 6 months in. So it's this recent explosion that's been really good for the sport.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's been really, I think it was a learning experience for me, just to hear from each of them about what it's been like to not only come up as in the case of Stefi and Natalie, a female lifter right around when the boom started, but also from Jen, who was around long before the boom started. And now, you know, not only are we looking at there being a changing face of the athletes involved, but also the coaches. And now there are more and more female powerlifting coaches and leaders from that side of it, which I think is great. So, yeah, it was a learning experience for me, just being a guy, not knowing what it's like to be, a female in the sport. I think is really important, because these are my fellow lifters. These are we got our bros that we always talk about, but we got our sisses on this time. Yeah. So it was just really informative for me, and I feel like I came away from it having a better understanding of people I share the platform with.
Yeah, and Eric, one thing I do want to say, dovetail as Eric would say in the podcast, is just how we conduct ourselves also online. Eric asked a question in this podcast, sometimes female lifters receive negative comments by guys saying like, oh, like, why are you lifting all this weight? You look bulky, this and that. And Eric asked the question, does this ever happen, or has this happened to you in person? And both Eric and myself, honestly, because we, sometimes just posting online, we receive hate, criticism, whatnot, like, oh, like, you have a terrible physique, kill yourself. Like, that's literally one of them. But I've never, and I don't think, Eric, you've ever received someone in person say that to your face, right?
No, yeah. I expected, my experience is that the negativity I've had has always been from social media and never in person.
Yeah.
But I expected that to be the same case here.
No. But it wasn't. When Jen said, like, in grocery stores, like, Jen's a natural lifter, like, she's 132 pounds. She has, and I mean no offense, Jen, when I say this, like, the mom haircut, she looks friendly, her disposition, everything. And how she said people would come up to her in grocery stores, men, and say, oh, you're too bulky, you're too muscular, like, what are you doing? Just the audacity. So I think it's a good learning point for me, just how we conduct ourselves online. And you, Eric, doing this, the Iron Culture, this is the compliment for the day. You get one compliment per podcast. Is the professionalism. I figure you're dieting, you got ketones on the brain, you're not even going to remember this anyways. Like, you're probably just thinking like popcorn, but I got to give it to you. Okay, I got to give you the big ups, because you conduct yourself with integrity, honestly, and a level of professionalism that I do aspire towards. I do like to get silly. I do like to make jokes. But the way that you conduct yourself then influences top down how other people want to be. So how you conduct yourself online. So it's been a great learning experience, I would say, for myself.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and I think this is just going to be a real treat for everybody, because speaking of conducting yourself in a great way, not only are these incredibly strong women, but they're also leaders, and they handle everything so positively, even when they get negativity, and they're both active. They're not, all three of them are not just lifting weights and being strong and being seen, but they're doing things to try to keep improving the environment, making powerlifting welcome, being involved in the sport, and their companies are doing things that are proactive in creating inclusion. And they're refs, they're at meets, they're part of their organizations. Stefi was just at the Arnold along with the rest of them. And so it's just really good to see them doing a lot of positive things. So I think you're really going to enjoy hearing from each of them.
Yeah, well, let's not keep yipper-yapping. Let's get right to the podcast. Everyone, this is our episode, Women in Powerlifting, by Jen Thompson, Stefi Cohen, and Natalie Hanson. Before we begin, if you do enjoy these podcasts, make sure to leave us a rating review on iTunes and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We will respond on occasion to comments. Let's get started. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Iron Culture, the podcast. This episode is the strongest podcast to date. We have 3 world champions, myself and Eric. So we're here. We're basically just going to be flies on the wall. The topic today is women and powerlifting, the recent explosion of female lifters in powerlifting. Powerlifting traditionally has been a male-dominated sport for years and years, but I would say recently in the last decade, there's been a large influx of women joining powerlifting. We want to discover the reasons why, what people can do to raise more awareness. So we're joined by 3 world champions from slightly different backgrounds, different times that they joined into powerlifting. What we'll do right now is the briefest of introductions of everyone. Let them introduce themselves, because we could do a okay job. They could do a way better job. I'm going to start clockwise as I see it on my screen. I'm going to start with Stefi Cohen, who just recently squatted 495 pounds in the animal cage. Stefi has shattered so many world records. I think, I'm going to butcher, I'm going to take a guess. Is it 28? 28 that you told me?
20.
Okay. Close. We'll
get there. A little generous.
Yeah. Just, look, I'm ahead by 6 months? So has also...
You're predicting the future.
Predicting the future. Okay, we're like Nostradamus. So deadlift 2, maybe first rose to fame with that monster deadlift, I think, in the cage. Once again, you did 545 pounds. Has been lifting in powerlifting since 2015 and has now been one of the figureheads of the sport. Stefi, why don't you just introduce yourself also a little bit, though?
Sure. How are you doing, guys? My name is Stefi Cohen. I am a doctor in physical therapy. I actually graduated last year in May. I'm a professional powerlifter, and I hold a bunch of world records, and I'm mostly known because I have a good deadlift.
Yeah, but that squat though, and also the thing I think everyone should be made aware of, as you told me a year ago, you said powerlifting's cool, but I really enjoy CrossFit. When you said that, I like how, and so you're like, yeah, like maybe it's like I'm a world champion at this, but maybe I'll just try out CrossFit again at some point.
I think I've changed my mind since.
Okay, yeah, good. So we have Stefi, and then coming up next is Jen Thompson. Jen, who is here, who is the real Miss Frizzle, the real deal Miss Frizzle, 132 pounds of power. Jen is also a world champion. She competes in the IPF. She's just smashing records left and right. Has been powerlifting way before it was cool. So we're talking, Jen, is it the late 90s or early 2000s? When are we talking?
My first competition was 1999.
1999. Okay, you're going to party like it's 1999.
It was a good song, great year.
Yeah, it was an all right year, and I think the best bench press in competition is 300, and is it because it's kilo conversion? It's not
319.6.
319.6. So there's an absolute. And how many world champions have you won in the IPF?
6 in the bench press and 4 in the full power.
Okay.
10.
So Jen is another beast. Jen, why don't you introduce yourself? However.
Oh, well, I'm Jen Thompson. I live down in Denver, North Carolina. I am a high school nutrition teacher. I've obviously been doing this for a long time. I have 68 world records. So there you go. You stay in the sport for a while. You just kind of keep adding them in. But I'm pretty excited to be here with everybody and share our experiences.
You also own a pet iguana, as I understand.
He was right here just a minute ago, and then he decided to go back down to his room.
That would be amazing if the whole podcast is just reinforcing that Miss Frizzle persona.
He likes to hang out. He's kind of cool. He's my son's, actually. I didn't really like him all that much at first, but he's sort of grown on me. So he's cool. He just eats lettuce.
No bugs.
No bugs, just lettuce.
Eric.
Love it. And then finally, we have the bencher, we had the deadlifter, now we got the squatter. So we've got the big three covered here with these wonderful guests. Natalie Hanson, you have a current world record IPF equipped squat of just over 600 pounds. I think with the conversion at 603. Is that right?
Yeah.
Pretty redonkulous, and I think you were a 2-time IPF world champion in the 84 kilo class. Mm-hmm. So I got that right?
Yep.
And you started in raw.
I started raw. I started in CrossFit.
You started in CrossFit.
Another CrossFitter.
The most raw.
Yeah.
The most paleo, some would say.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Did a lot of paleo too.
Raw lifting, killing it. So tell us more about yourself besides the fact that you can put up 600 on squats.
I am like Eric said, a 2-time IPF world champion, 2-time USA powerlifting national champion. These are just in the past 2 years too. So I started lifting in 2012, started raw, did a couple of years of raw before I transitioned over to mostly equipped. I still do lift raw, and I'm competing raw next weekend in a bench only, but for the most part it's equipped. And I live in Colorado. That's about it.
Love it.
I have four world records. So I'm nowhere near 68 or 20.
You know how much myself and Eric have?
Well, world records in what?
But before we hit the gym, Eric, what's our song?
Oh no. See, I feel like there's an inside joke I should know here.
No, never mind. It's going to be We Are the Champions, because it's all about how we feel personally, you know.
Right.
At least that's what we tell ourselves.
There's like, if there's a down note though, we feel we are the champions. Yeah.
You trail off, like you're not confident at all when you say it.
No, and then you just walk out of the gym and don't train.
That's so funny. I can literally picture both of you guys with the windows down, music blasting.
Oh yeah.
I feel like they have like 90s sweatbands on too.
Oh yeah. We're bringing back that, like, you know, there's NSYNC, there's Backstreet Boys. Further down the line, there's 98 Degrees. Then maybe there's S Club 7. We're just like Iron Culture's like over here, but we keep
bringing it.
Yeah, we bring it. Eric can dance. Have you guys seen Eric dance at all?
Never.
I've heard about it.
Where would we see that at?
Well, maybe if everyone's friendly enough, we can encourage him by the end.
Let's go.
So
I think he's too depleted.
I've got dance moves that are perfect for a podcast. Let's just put it that way.
Just make the audio noises.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, I think to open up this conversation, we're incredibly grateful to have you three ladies on this podcast. And Eric shared a statistic before we began that I think, Eric, you said now, before, 10 years ago, the gender split would have been different. But now we're looking at 60% men, 40% women. Is that what it is about?
From what I know, we're pretty close. I think I might have been like 38% last time I saw it. And I think that might just be the IPF or USAPL numbers. So I don't know if that's worldwide. I don't know if you guys know any of those stats.
I had the numbers. I haven't looked at them this month yet, but it was, right around a third,
Okay. So not quite 40% then, but in the a lot more.
And it's growing fast.
Yes. And that's what we want to talk about today. And I think we'll start clockwise once again, just getting into everyone's lifting journey, how they discovered powerlifting. Because once again, there's a lot of people that might be tuning in and they started lifting in 2016, right? And they just think, this is like women in powerlifting. Of course, it's a known thing. But if you've been around for a long period of time, strength sports, something like powerlifting, you would see a meet if you watch West Side or anything like that. It's like 95% males. So Stefi, to start off with you, you started lifting for powerlifting in 2015, but you were lifting before that. Can you kind of just give a brief history of your lifting and then how and why you discovered powerlifting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was introduced to weightlifting through CrossFit.
Yep.
Before that, I played soccer for the national Venezuelan team in Venezuela. And when I moved to the States, I was always looking for kind of a competitive outlet, something that I could do, to challenge myself athletically. If I found CrossFit, and through that, because it involves so many disciplines, the one that I was lacking the most was strength. So I got into Olympic weightlifting first, just trying to get the technique down. Then I did that for 3 years, and I got into grad school and found it really, really difficult to do all the training that's required for Olympic weightlifting to be competitive. My coach is a Cuban coach, and the way that he scheduled my training sessions was 9 training sessions a week, so double training days, and it got really difficult with grad school and mentally taxing. So actually, my fiance Hayden was the one that recommended that I started doing powerlifting because it required a little less training and a little less mental energy. That's how I got into powerlifting. I remember we were at the school gym, and he's like, I'm all frustrated because my cleans weren't going well. I didn't have chalk or something. And he's like, why don't you just do like a heavy deadlift? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to pull. He's like, why don't you try a sumo deadlift? And I pulled 3 plates. And I was like, this is kind of nice, This is awesome. So that's kind of my story.
And then slowly from there, Steph, how did you go from that 3-plate pull to deciding to do your first powerlifting meet?
Pretty much immediately after that 3-plate pull, I'm like, this is kind of cool. I wonder what I can do in a competition. So I started, instead of doing 9 training sessions a week that involved snatching and clean and jerking, I started doing 6 sessions a week that were strength focused. So instead of doing so much snatch and clean and jerk, I started doing more squats and deadlifts, to eventually fading them out completely, the snatch and the clean and jerk, and signing up for my first powerlifting meet. And I remember really, really enjoying the culture and the camaraderie of powerlifting compared to Olympic weightlifting, just how supportive everyone was and how inviting the community was, and doing really well. So that was kind of the most motivating part about it, was that I saw the potential that I had.
Right. Within yourself.
Yeah.
Awesome. So competition became a motivator for you just to keep doing more competitions?
Absolutely, yep.
And 20 world records later, here we are. Jen, so you're like an OG of powerlifting. Honestly, in the sense that when you've been with the IPF now for a while, you said you've been competing in powerlifting since 1999. So you've been around before the recent influx of women entering lifting. Can you just talk us a bit about yourself, how you discovered powerlifting, how that all came to be, your lifting career as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it was so different when I started.
Yeah.
I had started working out with my husband my friend husband at the time, and I enjoyed weightlifting. I really liked it, but I wasn't quite sure what to do with it because at the time, like, fitness was big, so that was all like, you had to kind of be good at gymnastics and really perform, and that was not me. And and I didn't want to go into bodybuilding. I just didn't want to, diet. I didn't want to walk around in a swimsuit. It just wasn't something that was suited for my personality. So I really didn't know what to do with it until we stumbled upon powerlifting on our honeymoon. We just happened to walk on meet on Venice Beach, Muscle Beach.
Wow.
And I saw that and I'm like, I can do that.
Nice.
That's how I figured out what I can do with this strength I had, because I knew I was strong. I was stronger than some of the guys in our gym, and I kept getting stronger, and I really loved it. So we found my first meet was the Detroit Rock City meet in 1999, and I remember getting there, and I learned how to deadlift like 3 days before. So I think I opened with 186, and I almost bombed out. I cut it, and then I fell backwards into the spotters, and then I think they were really nice on the third one, and then I benched 236.
Bench more than you deadlifted. Love it.
And then I deadlifted 305 or 295 or something like that. But that was when there was no raw, so I showed up and lifted raw. Everyone else is walking around like zombies, with their arms out and their bench shirts, and they're walking stiff-legged and stuff, and I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Like, what is going on? And so I got schooled pretty fast on equipment. And you guys probably don't remember, but there used to be a pretty famous powerlifting coach. His name was CJ Batten. He kind of grabbed me and put me under his wing and kind of showed me the ropes about things. And I got started I did equipment all the way till 2010.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because we referred to you as the OG, and I think you're only really an OG in the context of this recent boom that powerlifting has had. Kind of, I would say, in somewhere around 2010 to 2013 is where I really started noticing and started picking up. But there was a boom before that, because I started lifting my first meet was in 06, and the same experience for me. The first time I started lifting, I had no idea what equipment was. So the first boom was the raw boom, and now we have this boom where it's a little more inclusive across both sexes. So it's kind of like there's been a few of these things. I think maybe CrossFit is involved in this most recent one, but I think raw lifting also did a lot to catapult the sport to being a lot more accessible. So that's really cool.
Definitely.
Natalie, we got to hear that CrossFit story. So we've heard CrossFit it's like a gateway drug for people. Yeah,
absolutely. So I started doing CrossFit at the end of college. I was an athlete my whole life. I played volleyball and basketball. I got to college and I played a couple years of club volleyball, and I kind of just got sick of the team sport aspect. There was just, like we had to coordinate schedules and practice and stuff like that, and I was the one who, I feel like I was the one who always showed up, and there was always kind of a different group around. So the team was kind of pretty dynamic. It wasn't like a super formal club. And so when I decided to hang up my volleyball shoes, I was like, all right, now what am I going to do? Because I'm just like very competitive by nature. So I did a little bit of just fitness in the rec center, kind of trying to figure out, like, navigate this gym. I had never lifted before. And then a friend of mine she had been doing CrossFit for like a year, and she would come home and be so sore that she couldn't extend her elbows and, just crazy CrossFit stuff. And I was like, I'm never doing that. That's insane. And then eventually I was like, hey, so can I come with you? So we went to the gym, and she taught me first. They like took one look at me, and they were like, you'd be pretty strong, we think. So like, let us teach you how to squat. I'm like, okay. And it was the strength workout for the day was a 5x5, and I did 205, and no girl in the CrossFit gym had ever squatted 205 by 1. And I did it for 5x5, and I was like, I have no idea what this means. But I continued doing CrossFit because I didn't really know that powerlifting existed. It was just, we do powerlifting to get better at the strength aspect of CrossFit, right? So fast forward a couple of years, and I moved up to Alaska. I had been going to Boise State University, moved back home to Alaska, joined a CrossFit gym, and we did occasional powerlifting workouts, and I could bench body weight, and so it was like 165 at the time. And somebody who was involved in powerlifting in Alaska came into our gym one time to kind of recruit people for the upcoming meet, and he looked at the record board and he said, which female in here benches 165? And I'm like, that's me. He's like, that's over the state record, you should do a meet. I'm like, it sounds boring. It's just one lift, like, what do you mean? So eventually it took a few months, and I committed and I felt more interested, so I sort of like trained for a powerlifting meet, and that meant just maxed out my lifts the week of the meet and then showed up and tried to hit those numbers. But I still was like pretty dedicated to CrossFit. We were going to regionals on a team for this in the spring of 2013, and I wasn't really willing to give that up, so I just trained CrossFit, and just would, when there was a meet coming up, I would just like see where my strength was the week of the meet. And that just kind of, eventually I realized like I'm a lot better at this powerlifting thing than I am at CrossFit. People in CrossFit were getting really good, and I just kind of got sick of the variety, got sick of always having like a weak point. I like control, so powerlifting was like the ultimate I could control almost every variable. And so I just said, all right, let's do this. And that was so my first meet was 2012, the end of 2012, and I kind of fully committed at the like midway through 2013. And that's all. I've been in 20 meets now, I think. So I started off really fast. I did like seven meets in the first year, and then realized like that's not how you do this.
Very cool. Hey, really quick, Omar, can you write down this time point just to let Brandon know? Yeah. If you guys have headphones, if you don't, no big deal. It might be a good idea to pull them in just so that we don't get mic feedback. I just noticed, Stefi, when you moved your mic towards the computer, it picked up her audio and kicked it back to us. So if you got headphones, all good, put it in. Don't worry about it. If not, it should be fine. It's not a huge deal.
I can run and get mine.
No, you guys, so I'm actually going to speak out against Eric because I completely agree. But I got my headphones on, and we're rocking and rolling, and the audio actually, Eric, sounds nice. I did hear what you're saying, but that's no problemo.
Okay, cool.
This is Eric, so Eric is the man.
Speaking of control freaks.
Speaking of control freaks, and while you give a side tricep, we did a low carb, carbohydrate ketogenic roundtable, and I don't know if you remember, we restarted it 4 times because Eric had in his headphone, he was hearing a lot of feedback, and it's true, like he was in a room with 2 other dudes, and he's like, guys, we need to restart this. The audio sounds all messed up, and everyone else is like, no, it sounds great to us. And like we're like 10 minutes in a conversation, guys opening up like he's never opened up before. Eric's like, okay, so we're gonna need to restart this.
I don't appreciate the light you're painting me in, Omar, right now, but we can just continue. Okay.
We're like Bill O'Reilly. We're just gonna do this live. I want to ask you guys, because it seems like your experience, and I think maybe this is an important discussion to be had here. It seems like your first experience, your first powerlifting meet, was actually pretty welcoming. Like Stefi said, she loved the camaraderie there. Jen, you kind of mentioned the same, where like the spotter on the deadlift that kind of like held you, and they gave you a third lift. Can you guys just talk about your experience? We'll open it up now to your experience with powerlifting meets and how you've just been treated and experienced overall as a whole.
You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead, Stefi. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back at the first few meets that I had. It was really easy first of all, to find a meet around my area, which was also nice. I think I competed under the APA. It was a meet in northern Florida. I was super late to weigh-ins. I think it was past weigh-in time, and they still let me wait in. Some of my equipment wasn't legal, and they're like, oh, it's your first meet, don't worry about it. Oh my gosh, this story. Yeah, it's your first meet, don't worry about it. We'll just, let you do whatever. Then, okay, I compete. Because I'm a weightlifter, I am used to dropping my squats behind me when I miss. I freaking dropped my second attempt squat, but like not just let it slide, just completely jump in front, drop behind in spotters.
Yeah. Mad at you? Oh.
It's not. They didn't even get mad. They're like, oh, you know, poor thing. It's just her first meet. Just you can come in and take your third. They were super nice and non-judgmental. That really turned me on about the powerlifting community, really.
Yeah. Anyone else, your experiences with your first few meets? Because it seems like you each experience had a positive experience. Because I do wonder in my head if you had a negative experience, where we would be or what you would think of the sport as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I probably can make you or break you, but I mean, I can just tell you from the very first one, just to even the ones that, we hold in our own state, everyone, we all love our sport, and so we always love to promote our sport. And even though, even when you get on the world stage, Sam and I are back there, high-fiving and, cheering each other on, even though, you want to win, you're competing and stuff. It's not a negative atmosphere. And I think that transcends, whether you're in a state meet or a national meet all the way to a world meet. It's what's kept me in this sport for so long, because every time you go to a meet, you're just meeting up with your friends again. It's like a good reunion every time you go. Mm-hmm. And it's always been so supportive, especially when you compare it to other sports. We get a lot of vendors that come over from bodybuilding at our events, and they're always like, this is nothing like a bodybuilding. Sorry, Eric.
Eric, you gonna take that, bro?
Hey, I've done
so nice here, and you're not cranky and hungry, and it's like
Hey, I've done 20 meets and 9 shows, so I know both sides of it. And hunger makes the worst out of all of us. Just say that.
Everyone's lucky that Eric ate that popcorn before this podcast.
Thank you.
No, my privilege to eat that popcorn. Truly.
I want to thank my coach for including them in my macros. Thank you.
Shout out to Alberto for the high day.
Yeah, and then Natalie, your experience, it was positive over first.
So I think I would say it's always been positive. Yeah, my first meet for sure, I nearly bombed out. I didn't know what that was. I missed my first and second squats. I missed commands, and then I just lost balance at the top on my second one. And someone was like, "You got to get your third one, or you're gonna bomb out." And I was like, "What's a bomb out? What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Just trust me." And I had already gone up 10 kilos too, so I was all screwed up. And just hearing that from a fellow competitor, hey, don't miss this third one, and that, and then learning the commands on meet day. So we're in the warm-up room, and people are these are the commands, and I'm like, okay, I'll listen for them. But that support, I think, is really important early on to feel like you're welcomed in the community.
Definitely.
I think that the most resistance that I experience in powerlifting comes from people outside of powerlifting that maybe don't necessarily understand the sport, especially guys. I don't think I've ever gotten a negative comment from a girl in any post, any video I've ever done. Every single negative comment I get is from a person outside of powerlifting that's a guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That feels immediately threatened, that doesn't live, that isn't as strong as you, that feels their masculinity that is in question. So to compensate, their fragile ego has to say something negative. Can you three ladies maybe just comment on that? Because that's a unique aspect of women in strength sports. I'd say guys, no matter what, even if it's a lift near you, someone's like, "Oh bro, look, I'll get that next time." But you read some of the comments of some of the world champion female lifters and what they say, and it's the worst stuff. It's the worst filth. So
so the one thing that really gets to me is the focus on females' body weights versus males' body weights. So you take a super heavyweight female and a super heavyweight male. If a woman, we have a super heavyweight female in the U.S. who squats over 600 pounds raw, and there are floods of comments about body weight, versus when Ray squats over 1,000, people are still critical of his body weight, but not nearly to the same degree. And I think that women are just subject to judgment on appearance so much more than males are. And that's a huge difference that we experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or
There's
you
no
get,
weight
like,
classes in the jungle
fake,
unless you're a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they get the fake weight comments all
Yeah.
the time.
Mhm.
You know,
Fake weight comments, yeah.
get the fake weights always, you know, going, couldn't possibly be real, couldn't possibly be a woman that's lifting that weight because I can't. So, you know, so
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's a lot of that.
Oh yeah, well they have to somehow justify it in their head, Jen, right? It's like they see you benching 350. It's like, well, wait, that's not real weight. It's like, oh, it's real weight. It's like, but how much do you weigh? It's like 132 pounds. It's like, oh, okay, but how old are you? It's like, I'm in my 40s. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, but steroids, like, you know, like they have to go down the list.
Yeah.
Like,
You can see them
cannot be
falling
challenged.
down the
Yeah.
existential staircase of their own masculinity's demise, and just
When I
hitting
did
their head.
the Liberty College bench, you know, I did 325, and they had those 45-pound plates that have the little holes in them.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many comments were about that they couldn't weigh 45 pounds because there was holes in them. And I was like, oh my God, you guys are so stupid. I can't even comment on that. Nobody can comment on that.
Because this is a serious comment. Stefi,
Yes.
what about you, where you said that about, because it is absurd where you'll see, I'm just making this crap up, but at the Arnold recently, to give an example, right? You'll see Hafthor or whatever on the elephant bar. He deadlifts it's like 1,000 and change or whatever. And everyone's like, oh, bro, I want to be you, this and that. And then, as you said, Stefi, like you post your squat, you squat 495, like just insane. It's above the all-time record. And you read comments like female lifters, like I look up to you, you're inspirational. I can't believe that you did this. And then you look at like Joe Schmo that has his profile picture, it's like kind of him doing like the flex like this, and then he's just, you know, you read the comment, I'm like, you're an idiot. Like, how do you deal with that?
Oh my gosh, look, I just came to the realization that I just have to accept it because you can never win, man. It's unbelievable. Look, last year with the deadlift, straps, bumper plates, deadlift bar, sumo. Those were the 4 main points. This year, I hit a big bench, arch, wide hands. Then the squat, not to depth, wraps. I'm a midget. Those were the 3 things. She's a midget. The bar doesn't travel that much. She's wearing wraps. It's not to depth.
Yeah.
From a front angle with 2 hands covering my hips.
Yeah.
So it's just like, what do you do? I mean, what are you gonna try to fight everyone that has something to say about it? Now, what you just swallow your pride and try to prove it in a meet where it matters. That's all you can do.
And maybe serve as a positive example. I think you 3 ladies serve as a really positive example also to the community. And maybe the question I'd want to ask then is, how can powerlifting be more inclusive? Because you 3 each experienced great first meets, right, where you did it like it seemed that the handlers, the meet directors, everyone was kind of on point. And as you said, Stefi, it's mainly people outside of the community that are, I wouldn't say are an issue, but are the ones that are causing all this drama. What do you think powerlifting as a whole, or people in powerlifting, what do you think could be done to be for powerlifting to become more inclusive?
I think keep putting the sport out there, kind of exposing like the general population to the sport, and that will hopefully eventually like desensitize them to some of the things that are red flags to the general population. I think that's really our best bet, and not feeding the trolls, right?
I feel like that a lot of times too, like when those people say things about you or me or, you know, Natalie, there's usually someone that's going to reply back sticking up for you, which I think has been a change recently, which I think is good. You know, you definitely don't want to respond like Stefi says, you'll feel the fire to it. But now I'm seeing more people that are stepping in. When you can't say it, they're saying it for you. So you have like this sort of support staff. But I also think like the more that we can keep giving back our sport, you know, our sport's largely built on, you know, volunteering and being present and being around. And so the more we can put it in a positive light, that stuff, you know, becomes minimal.
I'm curious, Jen, before social media, what was the medium that people received criticism on? Was it fan mail?
There was none because there was no mode to give it.
Sure.
Yeah. Carrier pigeon. They were just writing, sending those pictures.
There would be an article 3 months later in USA Powerlifting magazine. Yeah. And you would find out how the meet went and who did well, and that was about it. There really was. I mean, I guess there was like what's like those blogs they had, like forums were, you know, probably the first step towards a lot of that stuff. But most of that was male dominated. They weren't talking about ladies in those forums, very rarely.
Jen, they didn't throw tomatoes at you?
No tomatoes. No tomatoes.
Not yet.
Not yet. I mean, there was a small group of us doing it too. There just wasn't that many of us. I mean, we would barely fill out a flight, of lifters. It was very small. With all the bad that we talk about with social media and those trollers and stuff, it really has been, I think, overall a huge positive for our sport, particularly on the women's side, because we can give so many good examples that debunk those sort of myths or the way they think women look, that type of thing.
I think also, go ahead.
Please go ahead, Stephanie. Go for it.
I think also having support from bigger and more recognized brands would be something that gives women a lot more legitimacy and potentially desensitize people more to it if people are seeing it more in more public spaces with support from big brands. Like, where is Nike? Where is Under Armour? Where is Adidas? Why are none of us sponsored by them?
I've been asking that for years.
I really don't get it.
We will make it happen. Okay,
let's do it. You heard it here on Iron Culture.
Yeah. Eric knows some people.
I do not, but I do. I'm wearing Nikes, which is about as close as I'm going to get to knowing that. So I have a question that kind of dovetails off of Natalie's question. Have any of you three ever had someone, and if you have, how many times, come up to you in person and say some of those similar comments that you get on social media?
Go ahead, Jen.
I was going to say back kind of when I first started, it was definitely unusual to see a woman with a muscular physique. So there was quite a few times where I'd be approached in the grocery store or in the shopping mall or something like that, and a man would have to come up and tell me that I was too masculine. What was I doing to myself? You look like a dude. And I'm not even really that huge, but and this was before social media. This was just they didn't think women belonged in the weight room. And they would have to comment on how my dad was the first one, honestly. No daughter of mine's going to look like a man. You put those weights back down. And I was like, I've never listened to you, Dad. I'm not going to start now. But it was interesting, and it got my heart rate up, and it was really alarming that someone felt the need to come up and say that to me in a public place that didn't even know me. That was scary sometimes.
I think that the internet emboldens people too. So you'll get a more straightforward comment on social media versus in person. I trained at a more so now I train at a powerlifting gym. Similar to Stefi's gym. But I used to train at a gym that had a lot more general population. And the comments that I would get in those settings are more I could probably do that if I widen my grip out so much, as much as you do. A more backhanded kind of just sliding it in there, and not as much of an attack like you would see on social media. But yeah, I definitely have heard those comments in person.
Stefi. Stefi?
Sorry, you guys are breaking up. Hold on one second.
No worries.
Go ahead. What was the question?
Yeah, I said, what about you? In person, any comments in person?
I think I look too scary. People don't dare to say anything to me.
They will crush you.
Just today a guy approached me and was like, if I was picking a fight, I'd rather fight a dude than you.
Nice.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
Well, I would say different of events now, from back when my earlier experiences, which were, early 2000s, now I probably get more compliments hey, your arms look great, you look great. There's definitely a spin, there's a shift. And there's still, douchebags out there, but still, it's much better now.
Well, Jen, let me ask you this, because you've been competing the longest here, and you've seen the rise. You started when, you'd be a minority if you're a woman competing in powerlifting. What do you think has been, or what are some of the variables that have contributed to this change over the last 10 years? Because you said there's been that spin where people now are a little bit more supportive as a whole, but how did the culture shift? What caused it?
I think a lot of it started with, most people were really afraid when you lifted weights, you would look like a female bodybuilder, a masculine looking woman. But, we started having sports that came along, started training that, they started having fitness. And then they had started having more of a natural, smaller woman's like swimsuit instead of like the full-on bodybuilding. I think CrossFit's helped out huge because they implemented a lot of our equipment, and then they still looked like they were athletic looking, but they were women. They looked like women. And so I think that has been a huge transition into our sport, and then follow that with like athletic wear, athletic models, and social media. So it just, I think, has been a big transition from that part where, if you lift weights, you look like this bodybuilder, to where you can look like a very fit woman, and it's what people strive to achieve now.
Yeah. Natalie, Stefi, because when you guys started too, like even 2015, I would say if we look at the yearly statistics of participants, I'm pretty sure I don't have the numbers on me, but it's probably going up every single year.
Yeah, I think that just normalizing female athletes in general. So CrossFit has helped with that. I think that just generally, like women were introduced to sport later, right? So that kind of journey to like a high level competitive athlete like a Serena Williams, that just kind of happened later, and she's mainstream. She's everywhere. So for a little while, people were like, oh, she looks like a man, and now people celebrate her all over the place. Yeah. So I think that mainstream athletes looking more like what we see as an athlete has definitely helped with that.
I think awareness, like coming from social media, the introducing the sport. I don't think I knew what powerlifting was until 3 years into CrossFit. And then that's when I started seeing other people on social media lifting heavy weights, and someone told me, oh, that's powerlifting, and that's how I got into it. So awareness, just it being on your face.
Yeah, and go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to ask, and I don't want to take it too much at a tangent. Steph, do you notice a difference in the weightlifting culture and powerlifting culture related to gender? Is there much of a difference there, and has that changed over time?
No, I wouldn't say so much related to gender, no. Okay.
So I would imagine a similar split with CrossFit feeding into both, since it, does both and many times. I don't know the stats on weightlifting, but I would assume we have had a similar boom, but I don't know. So that's what I'm curious about.
It has weightlifting has seen a boom, but it's not as accessible as powerlifting, especially raw powerlifting. So I don't think it's been like quite the same, like percentage-wise, quite the same spike, but it definitely has increased in participation since CrossFit.
Very cool.
Do you ladies think the boom has already happened, where people talk about CrossFit and how it was growing, and it still is growing in a lot of ways, but how sports kind of grow in popularity, or even weightlifting, when we take a look at in the US throughout the decades, how it wanes and then grows and so forth. Do you think that powerlifting has reached its peak, and then females in powerlifting, or really we're well on our way up, and the trend's just going to continue and more people are going to participate?
I think this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it ties into what we talked about earlier, is the community. But we have such a unique sport in that you can start at this sport at any age. And we do these all women's seminars, and we have women starting powerlifting in their 50s, some in their 60s, and some are starting young. So I feel like and I just feel like we are on the cusp of before this is going to really, really go huge, because it is something that anyone can do. You can be of any size, any shape, and you don't have to be certainly talented in certain areas, and you don't have to have like a ton of skill. I mean, there's some skill to it, but anyone can get in there and give it a go. So I think we have a lot of that going for us.
Yeah, I agree with that. The barrier to entry is very low. You have to be able to lift 25 kilos, right? Yeah. And you're in, whereas other competitive strength sports are a much higher barrier to entry. So I think that we're just seeing the beginning of this climb in powerlifting popularity in general, but especially women.
One thing that was really interesting at the Arnold this weekend, I got the opportunity to meet a ton of people. I had a booth there. So I had people coming over the whole weekend, introducing themselves, telling me a little bit about their story. And I would say that, I don't know, 90% of the girls that came up to me in that booth were just getting started in powerlifting, like were in their first 6 months of powerlifting, and they were all introduced by their boyfriends. That was really cool. They're all like, oh yeah, my boyfriend showed me your Instagram. I thought it was awesome. It really motivated me, inspired me to get started with lifting and getting stronger. I thought it was cool.
That's really cool.
I do think there's like a certain part too that particularly women, and that like they just want to be part of it. They really don't have any aspirations of being, not everybody, but like being a world champion, but they just want to be part of this community. They enjoy saying, I got to go to the gym today, and getting there and working out and talking about diet and that sort of thing. So I think it's just, there's a certain group that just want to be part, and it's something that everybody can be a part of. Like you don't have to be someone special. I mean, anyone could get in here and be part of this really cool community of people.
Yeah, I think that like a weight class bound sport definitely has some downsides, but I do think that everybody being able to kind of fit in a category too, so they can compete with people that they can actually compete with. I think that's a really important factor too that keeps people interested, or keeps women interested. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think it's really great that you all just are living examples of, hey, you can do this, and we all have different backgrounds, and that's something I love about strength sport, is it brings a lot of people together who otherwise might not normally have been brought together. But beyond just being who you are and being awesome, you guys also take an active role. Like, for example, Iron Sisters or Beef Puff Barbell, I know has a strong social justice mission. I would love to hear more about what you gals do to actively encourage participation. I know, just don't microaggress. How hard is it?
Anything that Eric says in this podcast, he's 4 weeks out. He's getting diced to the bone. His glutes are just looking absolutely peeled. So please forgive.
I'm losing the myelin sheaths around my neurons. Clearly, so.
I forgot what you said after glutes peeled. This made my brain go, what?
You're like, what? You haven't said a goal.
I got a visual. I saw that picture of your calves today, so I can't imagine what your glutes look like.
Jen, do you have on speakers, all of us?
It's kind of like a rib cage that's slowly coming in. Exact thing you do not want your glutes to look like is what I'm going for. So
I was going to say, Jen, you bore the setup from your son, and you have speakers on now, where the sound's being blasted into the room. Your son's like listening to this, like, this is what I'm missing streaming Fortnite for. Are you kidding?
I grabbed all his like computer gaming stuff, and he was like, well, how long are you gonna have it for? Like, I'm pretty sure you're not gonna go into like DTs or something. Okay, read a book. Like,
so about those social initiatives, sorry, as Eric was saying, let's start first with Jen. You were saying the Iron Sisterhood.
Yeah, we do. I think, we do some all female weekends, which is pretty fun, because a lot of it's like, dinner and going out and have a little bit of wine. But, some of it too is, we have a lot of online coaches and videos and some stuff, but it's way different when you get a hands-on, when you can hands-on talk to somebody that knows how to do things. So we're really enjoying those, because we feel like we're making a community of women, and we find like after each weekend we create like a Facebook group for them, and they stay in touch like the whole time. They'll let us know how they're doing. They become friends. It's like going to camp, like when you went away to camp in the summer and you're all nervous because you didn't know anyone before you got there, and then by the time you left, like you guys were like lifelong friends and your pen pals, so that's pretty cool. I'm enjoying doing that. I'm enjoying doing just some small seminars at different gyms, so I enjoy doing that. And then I run North Carolina Powerlifting here, USA Powerlifting North Carolina. So I make sure we put on good quality meets because we all talked about our first experiences. So, our meets, and I'm sure this is similar to you guys' in your states, like they fill up in like a blink. Like we can't have enough meets, and there was a time like it would be tough to fill up a meet, and now they fill up within a week, a little local meet, and so I think it's so important to make sure that those people are having good experiences like we are, because they're going to stay in our sport, and eventually they're going to be helping those people. And I can't tell you how many people call me and they're nervous about their first one. I'm like, don't worry. I'm like, you got a question, somebody will answer it, somebody will help you, someone will let you borrow their belt, they'll let you borrow your wraps. Don't worry about it. And we just have that kind of community. So I just think we all need to keep leading by example.
Love it.
Love it.
Natalie?
Yes. Yeah. So Beef Puff Barbell is my coaching company. We, our messaging is just kind of genuinely influenced by myself and my co-founder, Chelsea Savitt. So we have really just worked hard to create a community for all genders, but more specifically females, because we're the female powerlifters, and so we can kind of understand their struggles and their journey, and we have created a pretty strong community where, like Jen said, there's a Facebook group and they keep in touch, and it's really cool to see. And I think that when we started the brand in 2017, early January 1st, 2017 was when we launched. There was there were hardly any female powerlifting coaches. And that was really our main thing, was we need more women at the table. We need more women identifying as powerlifting coaches and kind of being there for other women in the sport, especially new lifters. And so that was kind of the beginning, and that's what we've tried to maintain.
Now, Stefi, talking about initiatives or just seminars, I understand recently you gave one at Fortis West here in Toronto, and then you also own a gym hybrid.
Yeah. I don't have like a direct initiative that targets specifically females, but I'm more known for just kind of speaking out on female standards of beauty and just kind of being proud of the way I look and showing my muscles on Instagram and not caring about what people say. And I do engage with the trolls, but always in a funny way. I kind of like troll them back, which I think gives me more power.
Yeah.
But but yeah, just making myself accessible to females and trying to put myself out there as much as possible, whether that's through participating in podcasts like this one. I recently did another kind of like series of podcasts that had I think 20 females participated in it. I can't remember the name of it, but it's these two girls from California that put it together. And each person records a 1 hour podcast, and then it gets shared on like this massive email list. So I participated in that. Tomorrow, I'm actually really excited. I'm going to Nike HQ here in Miami to participate in like a female empowerment campaign that they're doing.
For International Women's Day?
For International Women's Day. Today, I got an invite from Walt Disney to participate in a campaign from Captain Marvel to encourage it was to like say what being a female in strength means to me, and like encourage other girls to like participate in boxing and sports in general. So I guess not a campaign in a specific campaign that targets females, but just trying to participate as much as possible and getting the message out there and expressing how I feel about it. Also, I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but I signed with Animal, and I was the first female athlete that they signed, first female to participate in the cage.
Congratulations.
So, I didn't realize all of that. That's great.
Yeah, and they made an Animal t-shirt with my figure in it. First female. Very cool. I guess just through actions, actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely.
You make us feel terrible now because you said you're on a podcast with 20 female lifters, and it's gonna be brought. I'm like, we're out here trying, guys.
Yeah. Natalie, you brought something up that I would want to touch on a little more, is not only female participation in being the athlete in the sport, but also coaching. And to me, I have a feeling that might take a little bit longer, because most of the time, coaches come from athletes gaining experience, helping others, and taking on kind of that natural mentorship role. So it may just be a time lag, but that might just be me having wishful thinking. Do you think there are any barriers in place, or maybe a lack of acceptance of female coaches that are different than athletes, or is it maybe not much of a barrier?
It is dramatically improving. So I mentioned we started in January of 2017, and there was a pretty popular conference that happened right around that time that was, and I'm not going to name the conference, but it was all male presenters. And that was a place where Chelsea and I said, like, we got to get a woman there. Like, it doesn't have to be us. It just needs to be that there needs to be a woman at this conference specifically. Mm-hmm. And the next year, actually Stefi was invited and then couldn't make it, and I was her replacement. So that's like an example where we just said, like, this needs to improve. And so now, since then, RTS has a female coach. You know, a lot of these like main big, you know, powerlifting names, companies have female coaches. Obviously Hybrid has is owned by Stefi and Hayden. And so now we're just seeing it. It's much more normal. And I'm not saying that we started that. I'm saying just that I feel like we participated in getting more females at the table in coaching. And I think we're going to see it improve for sure.
That's an encouraging thing to see, for sure. I think it's really important because the stats actually don't make sense in the broader fitness field, in the broader nutrition field. So, for example, and this is kind of an aside, there are way more women with degrees in nutrition, sports nutrition even. But if you look at like the nutritional leaders, there are largely men. Mm-hmm. And then the personal trainer split is slightly, I think it's either even or slightly more personal trainers women as well.
Yeah, it's more females in the personal training. Yeah. Right?
So I think I don't know because I don't have the experience of a woman, but I feel like there's got to be something that changes or is a barrier that doesn't have that same like leadership thing. And I'm glad to hear that you think there's optimism because I would like to see that change. I think that if for leaders especially, like mentoring people and showing them the way and helping people is so important to have representation. I think it's important in the athlete side and the coaching side. So I think that's really good what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot has to do with the way that the leaders in the female industry in fitness are, the way that we carry ourselves and how we convey our message of, you know, being strong is cool, and just kind of trying to almost transcend genders and changing the narrative from being strong like a girl to just strong, period. Mm-hmm. Just how we deliver, I think it's important. So yeah, well, there's a lot of females with higher level education degrees. How are they using them? How are they putting, what kind of information are they putting out there, and how are they putting themselves, in what light are they putting themselves out there, and how are they sharing on social media and in other channels?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the aspects maybe on social media, the double-edged sword, at least my observation, has been that, you know, when you have endorsements, when you have certain branding, things that come at you, trying to stay, you know, a little bit more mindful, as you said, of what you broadcast or your branding stuff, it can be so important. A lot of people don't realize this, but basically there's almost an inverse relationship between, not always, but the quality of some endorsements and then the amount they pay. And so from the male side too, like you see all these individuals trying to sell programs or products, or just how they conduct themselves to either attract followings or make that quick buck, you know, so to speak. And so it's something as a whole, I think the industry faces a big problem with that.
For sure.
Yeah. And I guess a question that I want to ask you guys almost in closing would be, what has powerlifting done for you, or what's your biggest takeaway, or this experience, what's the biggest thing it's taught you? And I'll start the same way. I'll start with Jen.
Oh.
You're like, it's almost past my bedtime, guys.
Well, for me, it's been, it's been more about personally giving me confidence, making me comfortable with who I am, making me feel like I can go out and say what I want to say and be impervious to, to the negativity. But I started off very, very meek, very timid, very shy, very worried about what everyone thought about me. And then as your body gets stronger, I believe so does your mind. And so now I am okay with being who I am, saying what I want to say, representing what I want to represent. And if you don't like it, that's, just too bad. It's just given me that, which has made a big improvement in my life. And I just think it's super important that we build up girls that way.
Absolutely. Stefi?
It's just given me massive amount of confidence. Just kind of, it feels good and empowering that I'm being celebrated for going against the grain. Like, that's just awesome, because I have been going against the grain for a long time, since I was 8 years old and doing motocross and playing soccer, But I've never had a platform like Instagram and YouTube that I can share these passions and what I'm doing and what I believe in, and actually receive feedback from people, positive and negative. But I mean, you choose what you want to focus on. I choose to focus on the positives. Mm-hmm. So it is empowering, but beyond the strength component of powerlifting, the feed that are admiring them, that are being inspired by you.
Sorry, Stefi, can you just say that last sentence again? It just cut out, I think.
Yeah, that it feels good to, I can't remember how I said it. For the people that are watching you to be inspired by you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Natalie?
So I think that for the biggest part of it for me has been the kind of strength and resilience it's given me outside of sport in the rest of my life. I'm not a fitness professional. And so having to kind of stand up for myself and kind of pave my way in the industry in which I work. I'm one of few young females in the energy industry working in Alaska, especially. And so I think that having this kind of like accomplishment in my back pocket definitely helps with my confidence. And then it also just shows me that like hard work gets you places. You can, if you set your mind to it, you can achieve it, kind of thing.
Awesome. I just want to thank each and every one of you. This is like, there's thousands of people I'm talking to, all three of you, for just being, yeah, exactly, for just being awesome representatives and lifters you are, and just being great role models and examples. And I think before we close it out, I just want to open it up to say, is there anything else the three of you want to add on this topic before you get to talk about where people can find more out about you?
Oh. I don't know. I think we did pretty good.
I think
you guys killed it.
This is not saying there's an unfilled gap. This is me saying, hey, the floor is yours. Stefi, anything?
I mean, just if you're a female and you're listening to this, don't be afraid about what your family or close friends might think about you getting to strength training. And if it's something that you like, just get into it and don't listen to criticism from people around you, because it's empowering. It's a really powerful thing. Like Natalie said, it has a tremendous carryover into your professional life and to your personal life as well. And I think that's something that we've all experienced, just the power that it gives you, really. It's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Anything you want to add, Natalie?
No, I think that's great. You summed it right up.
I love it. And that lines up so nicely with what the mission statement of Iron Culture is, to try to bring what we learn in the weight room into life. Mm-hmm. So just want to thank all three of you being on. And Omar, since you're so damn good at these outros, I'm going to let you handle it from here, brother.
Eric, I love you like the brother that you are, and we are brothers from different mothers. We got to give them a shout out first of where can people find them.
That's why that's why I called on you.
So let's first start. I do want to thank you three ladies for being on. I think, as you said, more exposure of just women lifting, women in powerlifting, and then also getting over some of those stereotypes or tropes, or just serving as a positive example to the community, I think is incredible. So for people that are interested, we're going to link in the description of our YouTube as well as on iTunes. Jen, I'll first start off with you. Where can people find you?
Well, most of my stuff's Jen Thompson 132, because that was my weight class way back in late 90s. But that's Instagram. I have a website. It's 132 Pounds of Power. It's got all, where I'm going to be, where I'm going to do. And I have a YouTube channel, 132poundsofpower.com. And then we're also twitching a lot of our stuff on Twitch TV/Jen Thompson 132. So if you want to join our workouts and send us questions, you can.
That's so awesome, Jen. That's awesome.
It's pretty fun, I gotta tell you.
Well, you guys were so good when you were live streaming on Instagram. Those were just so fun to watch. And so Twitch is like the perfect place because it's a little bit more organized. It's not, you don't have to like catch the questions.
Everyone's getting a little bit better. Now I got to figure out how to make an emote. But, other than that, it's all good.
Stefi, where can people find you?
Where can't they find her?
If you guys are waiting for me, I didn't hear anything you said.
Oh, sorry.
You were guys waiting for me?
Stefi, where can people find you? Oh, no.
You can find me at Stefi Cohen and at Hybrid Performance Method. That's it.
Love it. So simple. Boom. Nailed it. Natalie?
You can find me at natalie.907 on Instagram. I don't really use anything else.
And we
I'm a
can also
hands-on
link.
sort of girl.
We can link Beef Puff Barbell if you'd like.
Yeah. At Beef Puff Barbell. Yep.
You're like, I guess my coach.
Yeah, sure.
I love how so like, same thing. We Stefi, we did a video for the channel. I'm like, yeah, what do you want? Like, she's like, just my Instagram. I'm like, not your business. Like, you don't. You're like, yeah. You're like, yeah.
They'll find
If
it.
they come to my page, they come to my business.
Yeah. No, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot.
We
of
got
sense.
enough clients, trust me.
Wow. Well, ladies, I want to thank everyone for being on. Eric, thank you for being muscular. Everyone, thank you for listening to this episode of Iron Culture, the podcast. Every single Monday. We linked everything in the description, so iTunes, YouTube, check it out. You can help us out, help spread awareness for this by leaving us a rating and review on iTunes. We're not saying a positive one, just any sort of review would help us out, as well as sharing this episode, our episodes. And lastly, you can leave. We do interact with subscribers on our YouTube channel, so the Iron Culture Podcast YouTube channel. We'll see everyone on that next episode on Monday. Peace.